I would promote the city of Regina the same way I would promote anything I'm passionate about. And that's really encouraging people to talk about what they love most about the city of Regina. I believe that if you're passionate about something, it doesn't matter what issue or what person, I believe that you talk from a heart, and that really is the greatest endorsement you can give anything or anybody. So just imagine if we have even half of the city of Regina, over 100,000 people, coming out there to talk about what they feel about the city in an era of modern technology. That can go really far. And I moved here about 10 years ago from Sweden. And one of the things that shocked me at that time was how negative people were about their city. But to see the way it's changed, people are proud now. We have a very strong economy. People feel that we're headed in the right direction in many ways, but I still feel that we can do better. But even being able to talk about those things that make us very passionate about our city would be a way to go.
Thank you.
So you had asked me, what else did you ask, the second part of that question? My 3 priorities?
What do you see as the top 3 priorities?
The first thing I'd like to do as mayor of Regina would be to change the culture at the city. I've been on the doorsteps of a number of houses during this election campaign period, and I've had the chance to meet a few workers at the city of Regina. And I think one of the things that I'm not happy to hear is that you're not happy to work at the city. I don't think that should be the case. I want people to be happy in the morning when they wake up and they go to their place of work. I want them to feel that they're coming to a welcoming environment that believes in them, that cares for them, and that respects the work they do. And based on that, I would like to see, a flow of that passion to how we serve our clients, the residents of the city of Regina. So that'll be the first thing. And when I talk about culture, there are 3 things I want to see. First of all, as a city, we're thinking long term. Whatever we're doing, we think ahead, not just, on a 4-year election cycle basis. I would like to make sure that we're also engaging people. We give voice to people all across the city. We're more open and transparent government. We're, responsive to the needs of our citizens, and we're not afraid to engage in very respectful and healthy debate, used to show that this is a transparent government, and that's one thing I've been very vocal about. I have made sure that on resumption to office, I would establish a regional transparency office that makes the city a more transparent place to work. The second aspect would be ensuring that we have an infrastructure plan for the long term. Infrastructure is a huge problem, and people talk about all other things like the stadium, but infrastructure for me, because I've worked in infrastructure, and I know that that is a huge problem, not just in Regina, but across the world, and we have to start taking that very seriously. So that's one thing I want to make sure that we get right from day one. And the third thing I want to make sure that we deal with is housing. Housing is a fundamental economic issue. It's not just a social issue. Because right now, one of the problems we have as a city is that we need talent to come and fill some of the job openings, created by a very positive economic environment. Housing is no more a social issue. People come here and they can't find a place to stay. If our young ones graduate from university and they can't find a place to stay, then we lose all those skilled people. So I think it's very important that we address that on day one. And those are the 3 priorities. There are, of course, other things I like to do, but those are, if you ask me, 3 things that I'll wake up thinking about every day and making sure that we move quickly on. Those would be the 3 things. Part of the culture of the city, I want to just go back briefly to that. There's a huge, and this is part of the reason why people are concerned at times, there's a huge pension fund deficit. As part of that culture, we have to solve that problem so that people feel happy about where they work. Somebody told me the reason why I'm leaving the city of Regina, and this is someone that was just about to leave, told me that I don't want to be caught up in that pension fund. So we're losing very good people to that issue. So these are some of the things that concern me. We have to deal with those things on day one. I believe we can do way more. I'm not happy with, and when you look at the stadium issue, the way it was handled, when you look at, a number of issues, the City Square Plaza, the questions that have been raised around that, I think we could have done better. I was also very disappointed to find out that you had to pay over $3,000 to have access to information on how your city council spends your money. It doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Again, in an era of increasing technological advancements, we have to spend money to make that public. Let me tell people what I would do. Every month when I fill in my expense claim, I'll take a picture and I'll post it on Twitter. It's out there. It's easy as that. So I think we can start to think differently. We can start to be more transparent. And that's what I want to see. So I don't think we've done a very good job. I think there's lots of opportunities for improvement. And I think that's where, as mayor, you would see that, you know, we'll be going towards, not just me, but hopefully the whole of City Council will start to lay down really concrete opportunities for more transparency. And people would have that sense that there is really a change at that level of governance. And this is one I've struggled a lot with. Unfortunately, this should not have been one of the major issues in this election. It was poorly handled. I'm not opposed to a new stadium. I've stated that from the very beginning. What I have been opposed to is the way it's been handled. It has not been a transparent process. It has not engaged people sufficiently. So I want to make sure that moving forward, we get those two things right. Now, when it comes to the proposal on the table, I'm not satisfied with it. I don't know how those numbers were calculated, you know. And I'm also very concerned, not just with the construction, because I think that is the easiest part of this whole project. I'm more concerned with the ongoing operating and maintenance cost. I think that is where we have to pay extreme attention and be very careful, because that could burden generations of Regina for very long. I don't want that to happen. So back to the question, is it something when I get to office, what am I going to do? I'm not going to scrap the proposal on ground. I'm going to look at it, because I believe that there's a proposal on the table. We have to look at that. Everything I've looked at right now in terms of the materials that have been out there indicate that if we go ahead with building the stadium right now, it might save us some money down the road, because 10 years from now, if we invest $150 million in renovating the stadium, then we might still have to do that 10 years down the road. And only God knows how much that will cost. We have no clue what the state of the economy will be 10 years from now. So these are things that concern me. Part of long-term thinking is taking those hard decisions. But this is what I'm promising the people of Regina. On assumption to office, we would have a full review of every single document relating to the stadium proposal. Every single document relating to the stadium from the beginning till present. And we will provide to all taxpayers a full transparent picture of where we are. And that means not just a proposal, but a clear plan on if this is a feasible option, how much it will cost, who is paying for it, and how much that will mean to you, the taxpayer. So I think these are things we need to do. And based on that, we start to take decisions. I think it is very disingenuous to be outside the decision loop and say, you know, we're going to scrap the project. I don't think that's the real way to look at governance. It's more complex than that. But this is what I can commit to, make sure we take the right decision. But whatever I do as mayor, I want people to be left in no doubt that I would always consider what is best for Regina. And I think that's what it has to be. This stadium issue is a huge undertaking. It's been poorly handled. The trust of people have been broken. We have to rebuild that. And it's going to be a very transparent and very engaging process. People are going to have their say in what happens in the future of the stadium. So yes, I am aware that we have and I alluded to that in my one of my initial responses. I know we have a huge infrastructure deficit. That is something that concerns me deeply. When we walk around the city, what we see first and foremost are the roads, and that's the easiest things that's what we see when we talk about infrastructure. We can recognize, we can relate with, but there's a huge system of infrastructure beneath the surface of the ground that we don't see. Out of sight is out of mind, and that is a huge problem. You know, the roads are not looking very good. So just imagine what's happening beneath the surface. So these are things that concern me. So I think infrastructure is, and I've highlighted that as one of my priorities. Getting into office, we need a long-term infrastructure management plan, and that's not just development and management plan, and that has to be done with the various orders of government, both the provincial, and we need to know what's happening in 2014 when the federal government releases a new infrastructure plan for how they fund municipalities. So these are things that will be important to have in mind as we move forward. In terms of, what was the second question you asked me again?
Part two was, do you support the 1% initiative?
Yeah, in terms of the 1% initiative. Now, one of the things I've been very vocal, and I'm proud to say that I'm perhaps the only candidate that has released a detailed platform idea on the economy, on infrastructure, on long-term thinking, engagement, transparency. So this is something I dealt with in my platform on infrastructure. I've mentioned that it is important for us to embrace new systems of infrastructure funding, innovative infrastructure funding mechanisms. 1%, I believe, when you talk about the 1% rule, you're talking about the penny tax, which was instituted by the Canadian West Foundation, a gentleman there that has been working on this project. It is an innovative way to think about infrastructure. What it essentially does is that it tells, is a taxpayer-initiated system. So the taxpayer decides, they agree at a referendum that they're going to increase GST by 1%. And they're going to decide how that money will be used. What kind of infrastructure projects will we use this money for over 2 election cycles? And after 2 election cycles, they can decide to scrap it or to continue it. So I think it's a legitimate system that, could provide an additional source of funding. It's more broad-based. There's no way we can meet our infrastructure deficit on the amount of money that we generate through property taxes. There's no way that the money that comes from other orders of government would help us meet that infrastructure deficit. So I believe we have to be more innovative, and part of that innovation is not just the technology, but also the funding mechanisms for infrastructure. So that's something I'm prepared to definitely look at. There are so many things out there that we can explore. We can explore a new type of lottery system for infrastructure. We can explore creating intellectual property from innovation that we sell or we produce jointly with the private sector, and have some of that money come back to the state of Virginia on a long-term basis. So those are things that we can very much look at in terms of innovation, but I'm very committed to innovation. Infrastructure is a big issue, and this is one. There are of course going to be challenges, because when you talk about the economy and you increase your GST across jurisdictions, there are different GSTs, and that is a very complex system. What does that do in terms of somebody that wants to come here and invest and finds out that they have to pay one additional GST? But I think what is most important is that we paint a clear picture of what your money buys. So if we invest in this and we agree to invest in this is what we get. And I think that would help alleviate some of the discussion around that. But it's definitely a system that I think should be taken seriously, as well as other systems for improving infrastructure funding in Regina. Yes, I'm very much aware about the issues facing the city pension fund. And I think that's one thing that I've said is going to be a priority. On day one, we have to get that issue right. I think one of the things that concerns me is right now it sits at over $290 million in 1 year. Just last year, it went up by $84 million. And what concerns me is that this has been an issue. And we've been negotiating for so long, and still there's not yet a solution. There's no solution yet. So that really concerns me, that it took so long it's taking so long to negotiate, to get to an agreement. And we've seen this thing balloon. We have a huge deficit. That's another additional cost. And if we don't deal with it properly, that could be passed down to taxpayers as well. Something that we don't want to do. We try to avoid that. So yes, I think we need to understand where the source of bleeding is. If this plan is not sustainable, then we need to restructure it. If I know there are folks that believe that we should increase contributions. I've talked to some city staff on the doorsteps that have told me that they're paying a huge amount of their salaries into this contribution. Like the lady that told me that she was planning to leave the city because she wanted to escape a bad situation, and she had been there for too long, so she could still afford to leave, right? Very intelligent lady. So we're losing part of our great potential within the city of Regina, and I think that is something that we want to avoid. If this is not dealt with urgently, we could also lose our credit rating, which would be bad in terms of our ability to borrow to do some real important work like building infrastructure. I would want that to happen. And of course, this has to do with people's livelihoods. So I think we need to come to a solution very quickly.